Huh?
The chapel got fruit and donuts?
Yes, she did. She made a sweet to us, ain't she? Yes, she did. Yeah. She, I talked to her about some other things. She was supposed to have something to do, next couple, several weeks.
Let's begin.
My goal is to have that this on the 19th.
All right, good afternoon, board members, staff, members of the audience. Let the record show that today is May the 11th. The time is 5 p.m. and we are here for the budget workshop agenda. I'm assuming there's no changes to the agenda, so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, Dean and Stacy, and all the staff members for the work that you all have put into this. As I've told citizens who've asked me, that this is a sausage making, and it's not neat. It's not always in the order that we want it to be, but I really feel like when we finish this, that we will have examined and taken a close look at all of our departments and everywhere that we can save money for the taxpayers of this county. So, having said that, Dean, I'll let you kick it off.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing, board members, is talking through this handout, which is in front of each of you. This is simply a printout of the same attachments that are on the website that have been available to the public for the same period of time. And what we're doing today, we're simply reacting to the last budget workshop. At the last budget workshop, you asked staff to try to go back to the drawing board and see if we could cut $700,000 out of the O&M budget for FY21. You also asked us to see what it would look like if there was no tax cut and or no tax increase and possibly a 2-cent tax increase. And so that's what we've done. We've taken out 700, and we're going to show you what it looks like with no tax increase and with only a 2-cent tax increase to see if you all can live with those cuts. So the first piece of paper that you've got in front of you is simply a by department list of which departments are experiencing which cuts. Now, you'll have to go into the worksheets that were sent to you to see exactly where each of those cuts are and how we got those totals. They're in red on those spreadsheets that you have digitally, but there was too many to actually print out and hand out. So if we want to go through those, you can challenge any of those cuts and say you don't want to make those cuts. But these cuts are premised on the fact, and so we told staff, these are 1-year cuts only. People are making cuts to things that they actually need, and they say we can get by for a year without that. For instance, the sheriff gives up a vehicle. I'll go through these in a second, but he needs to replace his vehicles on a regular basis. And so he, for this year, 1 vehicle, he says, okay, I'll throw that into the mix. It's not smart. He needs to replace a certain percentage of vehicles each year. This means the vehicle he's not replacing this year, he's going to need to replace next year. But in order to balance for this coming year, that's what these cuts for the most part represent.
Let me stop you right there. Board members, I know that there are some, including myself, who would like to get into a pretty good level of detail here on these cuts and say yay or nay. Before we get into this too far, do you think that we need to figure out what our process is internally?
Madam Chair, I would agree. I think that the board should go down the list and say, yes, this seems like a logical cut, or no, it does not, in the type of services was provided.
Board members, do you all agree with our approach? Yes. Mr. Ayers, good. Mr. Pugh?
Yes.
All right, so can you, with that in mind, go forward?
With that in mind, if you'll go to the next page, you can see with each of the options, which I'll talk to in a second, how much of the cuts you might want to not accept. And that's how that page is structured. So you basically we looked at 2 choices, no tax increase and a 2-cent tax increase. And with each of those options, we looked at continuing with the 3% cost of living increase across the board. And then we also looked at a 2% cost of living increase across the board.
Can I stop before you go too far in detail? Or I don't know when this question should be asked necessarily, but I want to know what the cost is of the market adjustment before the 3% COLA for the 34 county employees that it affects.
Just the 34?
Mm-hmm. That would exclude the sheriff's office and public safety.
Yeah, those were presented in past.
I know, I'm just trying
We
to,
gotta go find it. Because we did break out the cost of the sheriffs, the cost of the
Yeah, I'd just like to know.
public safety, and the cost of the 34 positions.
We should have it somewhere.
Yes.
You can.
So I'll continue while she looks. So just to make that distinction, these budgets assume that you're going to do the salary increase for public safety, for the sheriff's department, and for those 34 positions. Now remember, we have a total of 90 positions. 34 of them are not at market average. So when we talk about the 3% and the 2% cost of living, we're talking about all 90 positions. Okay, so the others will get their salary adjustment, and then everyone will get the cost of living increase. So on this page, each of the blocks look the same so that you can be consistent as you compare. They'll each start with the revenues that we anticipate to receive, and they add to those revenues the Amherst County Service Authority funding that you give to the Service Authority each year to pay toward its future expenses, its future capital expenses. So this year that's $176,941. And so because the Service Authority Director has offered that up, we're sort of accepting that on your behalf and including that in our budget calculations, that yes, you will not give the Service Authority that 176, you'll hold it for 1 year. And so we add that to our total revenues. And then we have the same expenditures that we've calculated each year on what they would be. And those are the same in all 4 options, the expenditures. And then we give you the 2 numbers, the cost of the 3% cost of living increase, and then the cost of the 2% cost of living increase. And those also are the same. And you can see for each option, there is a remaining balance. As you would expect to look at the no tax increase and a 3% cost of living, there is a deficit, $14,800. That means that at the end of the year, we'll be $14,800 short in order to balance the budget. And of course, that's the highest cost. Without increasing taxes and adding the expense of a 3% cost of living increase, that's why there's a deficit. All the other options have a remaining balance, have money left over at the end of the year. And you can look at that basically as the amount, if you want to go with that option, the amount you have to work with to reduce the cuts from the previous page. So to look at the no tax increase and 2% cost of living, there is $102,000. If you want to reduce the cuts on this page by $102,000, you can, and still balance with that option. Make sense? Your brows are knitted.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
could I just make a point, or it's really a question? I'm close enough to the mic. Got my note right here. So the Service Authority funding, you're saying we would hold that back and use that?
Yes, sir.
But it is my understanding that the Service Authority has a reserve fund, right? So it's not like we're leaving them out to dry. They do have reserves that are available to the Service Authority.
That is correct, and they contribute their own funding each year toward their future expenses.
Right.
And in the past, you all have agreed to do that to help them do that.
And I don't think that's been going on. It's probably been going on the last 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, but before that, that was not provided. That's right, 5 years? It
Yeah, it
started
went
about 5
into
years
place
ago,
right
so-
when I came, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so now just to run through the slides, just a few of the slides at the front.
Do you have that number, Stacy?
Huh?
Do you have that number?
Yes, 292,000.
292,
Mhm.
and that,
That counts benefits.
That's for the.
and that was
third
what percent three, what was that?
That was
That's the
for
market adjustment.
adjustment.
The market adjustment for those that are not public safety or sheriff's department.
So the 34 county staff positions
Right.
only.
It would cost 292,000 to bring them up to market.
Yes, sir.
Is that with the 3% or not?
No,
No,
That's before the
that's
COLA.
before the COLA.
that brings them to July 1 of 2019,
Okay. Now,
or
just
2020.
uh,
2020.
just to run
My
through
year's running
these other slides briefly. I mean, what we're looking at today, we had to organize it. So we organized it by, are we going to do a 2% tax increase or no tax increase? Because that's where we left this at the last workshop. Here is a slide that shows generically the cuts. You've already said you want to go through them specifically, so we don't have to spend a lot of time here. But each of these cuts, as I said, are to 1 year. We'll be back again next year asking for the same amount of money. And should we get desperate during the middle of the year, we will come to you and say, look, we cut too deep in this account. Turns out that we need money for one item or another. You know, for instance, we reduced our IT equipment replacement funding. All right, so we have a pot of money each year to change out computers, printers, and so forth, screens. So should something fail ahead of schedule, then we would probably need to come back and ask for funding to do that. Stacy will be keeping the board informed on a quarterly basis on revenues to see whether our conservative projections are good or not. And we'll be watching actual revenues as they come in and reporting that to you. Since we're going to go through these, I'm not going to go through those cuts. One of the things that, if we can go to revenue sources, you know, it doesn't all have to be done with cuts, reductions to our costs. There's also places where we can raise some more money, and in particular, things that we haven't raised in a long time. If you look at the bottom one there, our EMS fees, these are the fees that we charge insurance companies for an ambulance ride to the emergency room. Our fees are well below those of surrounding communities, and we want to bring to your, to a decision for you all. Sam will present in an upcoming board meeting a request to increase our fees to match those of surrounding communities. Well, when we do that, we will raise an additional $60,000 to $75,000 in revenue that we're leaving on the table at the moment.
Is that for commercial pay or is that Medicaid or both?
Well, it's whoever their insurance carrier is.
I know what you're asking, and
Yeah.
that's a really complicated thing to try to break out. It's for both, I would assume. But I think you'll get the fee schedule when he presents. Normally what happens is if you don't charge enough to meet Medicare, you're leaving stuff on the table at the commercial level as well.
Okay.
So in the back of your mind, as you go through trying to find money, reducing the amount of cuts and trying to maybe match up this year-end amount, if you want to say, you know, staff, we want to proceed with getting our EMS fees to match surrounding communities, well, you can give yourself an extra $60,000 right now to work with. Okay. The next one from the bottom is increasing permit fees. Our zoning fees, our building and safety inspections also need to match reality and surrounding communities. That will raise some amount. And we already addressed this at past meeting with regard to recycling. If you did want to stop recycling for a year, that would save us $40,000.
Going back to the permit fees and EMS fees, is it possible that if you do that, that you can earmark that revenue for that department going forward?
Well, you could, but there's no reason to do that.
I think that would be difficult in that, I mean, you wouldn't really necessarily know what the difference is as easily. I'm trying to think of a way to do that, but we get all of our EMS fees in one lump sum. And so I've already seen an increase in the last couple of years, just due to their call volume, but I don't know that we can separate out the difference.
Just looking forward, if, for example, if Sam knows that he's gonna need some type of safety gear within the next 5 years, if we could earmark this increase to go towards that, and maybe it's not a good idea, I was just asking a question.
Well, you can always do that.
You can do that
It's part
at
of
any
the
time.
normal budgeting process. You know, you can, we can say, you know, we expect this much to come in, and you can, in his budget, set up a fund that increases by that amount with each year. I mean, yes, it's possible to do it that way. Okay, so we just wanted you to be aware of these as opportunities also as you go through costs, to reduce costs.
Madam Chair, so I think looking at the fees is an outstanding idea. If we chose to do that as part of this budget process, could that be done at the same time as the budget, or would there need to be separate public hearings?
There will need to be ordinance changes to put these into effect. So yes, there'll be a public hearing that's required. The county attorney is already working on the ordinance changes to present these to you at your next meeting on the 19th.
I don't see any reason not to do that. I can't think of a reason not to do it.
Right. We're not creating a disincentive for our community because we'll be matching those around us. And we'll still be probably lower than most. Okay, so with that, the rest are just the charts that show you the difference between the 2 cent tax increase with and without the COLA, and the no cent tax increase, the no tax increase with and without the COLA. And you can see how far into the future each of those options will take us. Well, they have them all in front of them. I wasn't going to focus on any one.
All right, okay, I didn't know I needed to be on one.
The main difference between each of the charts, when you look at the charts, they all look almost identical. And the place to look on the chart to see where the difference is, and it's hard to spot because we're only dealing with $700,000 over the course of 1 year. That's in the between 2020 and 2021, where those two lines cross. So what we did is, you know, we charted this out until the next real estate tax assessment, the year 2026, so you can see how far these options will cover county expenses into the future. In other words, when we'll next be out of money and need to raise taxes again. And that's on the red and blue charts.
But that's if we accept all the proposed staff cuts.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, that assumes that is correct. That is correct. Then the last 2 pages we took your guidance from the meeting and we updated the CIP listing and we updated the supplemental budget. You'll see on the CIP that there's no longer a cut line. We took the items that you said not this year and we simply moved them to next year. So you'll see at the very project number 1 is replace the Bright software. We moved that from starting this year to starting next year. None of these projects go away because they're all needed, but you can see the ones that have been moved out a year. Now, whether you actually do that or not, or simply leave them in the current year and wait, tell us to hold off on obligating ourselves in a contract until we confirm that we've got revenue. That's what we would do anyway. But keep in mind, this CIP has nothing to do with revenue, okay? This is the money that's already in our account, we've already saved up. It doesn't affect O&M. But we understand the appearance, you want to create, we're not spending too much money too fast, we want to delay that till later years, that's fine. But that doesn't affect the other charts. The last chart that
But I had a question there.
okay.
When we discussed that, we had said, Lisa Martin was very specific not to take it out, but just pump the brakes. But then I seem to remember that there was an accounting reason why you had to take it out and move it forward. Am I remembering that right, Ms. Wilkes?
We normally, yes, you normally appropriate for your CIP for whatever for the current year. So, it would look kind of unusual to have them in there and not appropriate for them. So I moved them out.
Yeah, I think what my understanding is that we were, as the chair said, we were just going to hold off on letting contracts on those. We didn't necessarily want to move them to a future year. We did specifically ask for the exact cost of the refurbishment on the tanker truck.
Okay,
Well,
if
there is nothing that
Just
keeps.
because we're appropriate doesn't mean staff has to go spend it.
Well,
Right?
No, the appropriation is the authority to go
to go
spend it.
do it.
So when you approve the budget, what you're doing is you're giving us authority to go spend this amount of money. And so if you don't want to give us that authority, you move it out of the current year. There is nothing that keeps you, and we've done this in the past, we've taken a future project and moved it up. We've taken a project from below the cut line when we didn't have authority to spend it, and you've moved it above the cut line. So there's nothing that keeps you from moving a project into the current year. But if you don't want to give us authority to spend, obligate, and incur the expenses to get ready to buy that thing, then we take it out of that approval, out of the current year.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if things get back to, things start booming again, things are going great, we could sit here and say, you know what, things are going pretty good, revenues are coming in like they were, we really ought to move the software back into this.
Yeah.
And we could do that.
Yes, sir.
At any time.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That is correct. Okay, so on the last page is the supplemental budget, and it actually does have cut lines. And if you look at the bottom cut line, you can see that we've moved several items below that. So the CSA coordinator position, the DSS assistant director position, that's now below the cut line. In other words, we're not authorized to go higher.
And Jane moved her part-time below.
She did, okay, since this.
As part of her cuts, yeah.
So that's kind of the overview of the paper that you have in front of you. And the approach that we took.
And you all have already directed me not to appropriate for any of the one-time stuff right now for this one.
Well, I have a suggestion on what I would like to see done. I think the board could fund the pay adjustments for the public safety and sheriff's positions. And then a 3% raise across the board for everyone with the additional savings that we have. And then revisit the remaining marketplace adjustments that we're not going to do in the first quarter of next year. So we get a better understanding of what the budget's doing, what the recovery is going to be like, and look at it then in January or later on in the first quarter once we get some more readings. And I favor this approach because it does help everybody. It does. It gets the sheriff's deputies, it gets the EMTs and everybody up to par. That's where we've seen a lot of people lost. You know, it's in that area. Now we've lost some people on the county side too, but it will give us a little bit more of a buffer going forward because this looks pretty tight. We've really cut a lot of money out of the budget, and we could get ourselves into a a pickle, so to speak, if things don't pan out. So this will give us a little bit more, it just gives us a little bit more money to play with, and that's my suggestion.
So if we did that and we accepted the 277,000 cut from solid waste, that would put us at $569,000, right?
In total cuts.
Pardon me? I don't understand your question.
Well, right, in total cuts. If we did the 34, if we postponed the 34 staff positions as Mr. Pugh has stated, and if we accepted the 277 from solid waste, that would be 569 in cuts. You said the 34 staff to bring, you said to bring 34 staff to market, including sheriff and public safety, was 292,000.
And we built that into our totals.
And that did not include the 3%. That was just to bring those 34 to market. Right. So that's $292,000. And then if we accepted the 277 from solid waste, that's $569,000.
But we needed over 700 balance.
I guess I'm confused about
Yeah,
you
but the
accepting the
292
solid
now
waste because
comes-
it's already in our number.
What's that?
The 277 is already in our number.
292. Yeah.
No, the 277 for solid waste.
It is.
I'm trying to figure out what your,
We could put 292,000 back out of the cuts that they were.
They're taking 292 out of expenditures. Because we built that full
That's
market
built in all of
increase into the expenditures. They're pulling it out of the expenditures.
okay, so you take the 252 out, you have
It's
690.
292.
Oh, 292.
You take 292 away from 742, and that gets you what you need to come up with, right?
That means you can add back the 292 if that's your desire.
We have 292,000.
Correct. So you can add 292 to getting these four numbers.
Right. For this.
Right.
And the 277 is already built into
That.
the
Yes.
expenditures. Right, so
That cut is for the
yeah.
difference in the hauling.
Right, that's something you've already approved. That's not something that we did as part of this exercise.
Well, that's
You
my
approved us
suggestion.
to haul, you lowered our whole variety of costs.
That gets your deficit down to $450,000 is what it does.
And as I have said numerous times, this is a philosophical exercise, and all five of us have got things that we feel are important, the best way to go about this. I would like to see options that don't make winners and losers with any employees. I would like to see options that take care of our public safety, of our sheriff's department, and of our county employees. That's where I am. I don't want to make winners and losers here. We have done above and beyond to take care of our county employees and really worked hard at that. And, done market adjustments and looked at salaries and had you doing all kinds of different, scenarios. The county employees are the face of this county. They're the people who make things work. And I don't think one group is any more important or less important than anybody else.
Well,
My
that's why,
personal opinion.
yeah, well, I think at least this approach helps everybody in some way. It's a perfect no. But these are unique circumstances. I think next year we could bring that up. I think Mr. Martin actually made he didn't make a recommendation, but he says it's something we could do by splitting this up. One year we'll do the sheriff's deputies and the EMTs. The next year we'll look at Northern County.
I said that last meeting. And
Yeah, I didn't say.
I think the chair said the exact same thing. He said today, so very consistent. I think the point is, though, is that the sheriff's department and the public safety department is where we are having a very difficult time in attracting and retaining employees. We just cannot do it because we're not even close to competing with other localities. I mean, they're leaving left and right, you know. So regardless of anything else, I think we absolutely have to address those two items.
I agree with your statement. However, look at the turnover that we've had in building and inspections. Look at the turnover we had in certain departments. And I just cannot, my conscience won't let me do it. Say that one class of employees is more important than another. I can't do it.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I agree wholeheartedly with that public safety, law enforcement, and EMS folks. But if we recall over the last year, how many times has Mr. Rogers had to go and dip in the tills to try to keep people here that had offers to go in on the county staff side, not in the EMS and the law enforcement, but county staff, that he's had to cut, to do some salary adjustments in mid-year to try to keep people here from leaving. I too agree with that. We need to consider everyone. But we have definitely got a problem with the law enforcement and EMS, and we've got to address that. But I don't think we need to single anyone else, any other department, county staff out of any, you know, if we've got to do the fair market, then maybe we need to do something with COLA across the board with everybody. I'm along the same lines. We can't, I mean, I'm 100% we've got to do something on those folks, but I'm 100% we've got to take care of county staff. That is our county government, is the people, not the buildings.
And if I might remind the board, when we were given this tasking to go find the cuts, it was with the understanding that, you know, approach the departments and the constitutionals and tell them that, you know, we need cuts. If we're going to salvage the 3%, absolutely. If we're going to salvage the 3%,
a lot of these cuts came from other county departments, not just EMS. So these other folks have cut their budgets to help everyone and themselves. So that would be pretty selfish on our part, not to respect these folks that have made cuts from their departments. And we do something, we got to do it for them entirely.
In fairness, though, I think what Mr. Pugh said was, you give everyone the 3% cost of living. You wait on the 34 staff market adjustments into the, what did you say, first quarter
of next year,
to see if they could get it. And if we as a board say, hey, you know what, we absolutely need to do the market adjustments across the board, fine. But that means we're going to raise taxes. Because I do not see logically that we can accept the majority of the cuts that they propose and not cut service to the citizens, or expect them to be able to maintain department services. Because some of it is just, it's plain silly. I mean, they've cut like gasoline. You spent $1,400 in 2019, but you're going to increase it to $1,100 this year. Yeah, gas prices are down, but they're not going to be down forever, right? I mean, some of it just doesn't make sense. Or you're going to cut all your travel and training, so we're going to have staff that's not staying up with their profession. No, that's not logical to me. So really, the only thing in here that I think that is a no-brainer in accepting back is the solid waste, right? So,
well, just now we can go through and explain each of those cuts, but just to remind you, I mean, on the options that you got, the no tax increase and a 2% COLA across the board still leaves you with a balance. So you could do all 3 salary adjustments and a 2% COLA. And then at the end of the first quarter, if you wanted to raise that COLA to 3%, in other words, add 1 more percent, you could delay the COLA. But I would really like to be able to adjust staff And,
I have a question for the sheriff. In the cut you had, it said cut deputy overtime pay. What does that mean? What does
He's
that
gonna pay
mean?
for it out of fund and for.
What?
I was gonna take and use the fine
Fine
revenue
money.
money. Fine money and pay it. Just not revenue.
So you're not cutting, you're not,
Oh, I'm not taking the money away from them. No,
okay, you're not, and you're not taking them off the road anymore.
No, ma'am.
You're just using a different revenue stream. Okay.
Okay, but
and we can go through each one of those, like the training budget, we did not cut the training budget for those departments where they need so many continuing education hours to maintain their license. Those budgets didn't get cut. But every department does have a training budget for go to conferences and get additional courses. And those that are not mandatory for the position, those were the training funds that were cut. So there is an explanation for each one of these cuts.
So I'm in agreement with the pay raises for all three categories of employees. I think where the board sees it is because the public safety and sheriff's department are larger departments. And so you see that it's a higher turnover because you have more people leaving. But when you have a department of three and two of them have already left, I mean, that's pretty significant amount of turnover there. So I'm in agreement with the full salary there. So just.
So we have presented to you options where you can do all three, and then you can flex with the COLA or not. And then you can also flex with the other cuts if you want to go into those.
I think we absolutely need to not accept all of the $700 and some $1,000.
Do you want to start with Department A, like the beginning, or do you have somewhere in particular you would like to start?
If we want to look at all of them, I mean, if
We just go through, okay. I'm gonna have to flip back and forth because I have two different.
yeah, just show us where to start on our agenda thing.
So I'm not sure on the agenda part.
The animal control.
Animal control is the first one. I don't know. The advertising seemed reasonable. Repairs and maintenance let me ask.
We've had good luck with our vehicles. We have fairly new vehicles that they driving. The animal control, we hadn't had any problems with them, so we took money from that.
Telecommunications,
We hadn't had
you've only got two over there.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But you spent $1,329 in 2019, but you dropped it to 1,000 for this year. Is that because we don't have the same number of staff there?
Sean told me that was money we could get rid of and it wouldn't hurt us as far as we didn't use it last year, the total amount, and we wouldn't use it this year.
I think I looked at that in the detail and I didn't think you would either this year.
I didn't.
Gasoline, newer vehicle, more efficient?
Well, gasoline's $1.50 a gallon right now.
Well, yeah.
Right. And we didn't have a one guy working animal control, one person working animal control for pretty much the whole year. We just put somebody else over there. So that saved money right there too.
But I think even for next year, you're about 700 off from the year before, so that's not horrible if you got new vehicles.
No.
Okay. Uniforms cut in half. Tires. New vehicle, probably only need one set out of two, maybe. Travel.
The only way we use travel was we have a new handler come in. They have to go over to town to go to a school in Hopeville.
And they reduce some of their trapping and other equipment.
Then
Are there any of those that you want to add back?
I don't see where we make any change. I mean, I don't see how you can do anything else with that.
Okay, so go to the next one.
Wait a minute, I want the board to agree.
Madam Chair, I think when these department heads and their staff make cuts in these, for us to sit here and second guess what they've done, we asked them to do this and they did it in good faith and they feel they can operate and do what they need to do based on the numbers they gave us. I mean, that's we can go back and go through these and look at page by page, but hopefully if they didn't cut anything that would jeopardize services to the county. I mean, that's my feeling.
But Jimmy, that's not true, because if you look at the libraries, they cut quite a bit out of books and subscriptions. And who's that gonna hurt? That's gonna hurt the citizens of the county. So we absolutely need to look at it. Absolutely. We need to look at it and figure
But
out.
do we need to talk to these folks to see maybe it's something different that they've done that,
I'm kind of with Mr. Ayers. I think
well, we're doing this on a 12-month budget. Next year, I reckon that's what they're saying. For the next 12 months, we can do that. We didn't ask them to do this as permanent cuts. We've asked them anything for the next 12 months that they could cut back and do without to do that. So we understand as this 5-member board that next year, this is not going to be there. We're doing that because of the crisis that we're faced with right now that is totally uncertain ground. And, this is something we asked them to look at for 12 months, but several of them called me and that's exactly what I told them. Anything that you feel that you can make do without for the next 12 months, that's what we're looking. We're not doing this is hopefully permanent cuts. So that's my feeling.
I agree too. I think our role here should be, when you look at the page, which one of these items are we gonna go with? The 2-cent increase, the 3% COLA, and all the different information on the page, and then let the staff work that out. They brought it to us, and it's time for us to make
Make a decision.
because we could be here for bringing people in front of us like we used to do and question every cut or every expenditure, and we could be here for weeks.
We've asked them to help us get through this 12-month different times, and that's what I feel like they have done. And what Mr. Rogers has brought forward with the change of fees for our EMS, I think that needs to be done, but that needs to be set there, and we know that to help us with what we're going to be faced with next year, because we're going to have to do something. And we don't have, we've got to, and hopefully through the media, the citizens will understand that, but we're trying to do everything we can do for this upcoming budget to not increase taxes and keep spending at a minimum, and I think that's what department heads are helping us do. That's my opinion. If y'all want to go through them page by page, then.
I would like for you all to look at the Board of Supervisors page, because that's where I made cuts for you. And that's your money. You might want to look at
So
what I've done.
one thing I want to bring out, and I hear what you're saying, Jimmy, but there were 3 things that when I went through here jumped out at me. And one of them was the fact that we call ourselves an agricultural county. We say agriculture is a business in this county. We cut the extension agent. Now, we don't have one. There's a private sector person that everybody is calling now. And it's not his job to be doing this. And if we say that agriculture support us, dang on it, we need to fund it. Now, the Commonwealth of Virginia has put a freeze on hiring. That freeze isn't going to go all year. And do we really want to tell our farmers that we cut extension? I don't want to do that.
So let me go back and find that email, because
The second thing is that on the registrar, she asked for people for that new precinct that's to be absentee voting with all this stuff that's come out. That's a very sensitive issue. We cut that. Do we want to, are we okay with that? Because you had to go through here very closely.
you didn't cut that.
I thought you said when I asked,
It's
No,
on
we
the
did not cut that.
supplemental, and it's just not funded yet until you're ready to fund it. It's on your supplemental list.
so, okay, so we didn't cut that precinct. Okay, all right. Those were my,
We made some cuts to the electoral board, but the secretary told me in her email that we only have 2 elections next year, and she felt like that was the safe cut for her. She did cut her
That's not what I was told today, because I asked specifically about that new precinct.
Yes, it's above the cut line on the supplemental. It's not in the cuts on here.
So on your last page of your handout, you'll see it just above the top cut line. So it's still funded.
And Mr. Pugh, are you okay with cutting the extension agent?
I don't think we have one at this point in time. I just spoke with a former, I've never, yeah, I'm fine with it now temporarily, and then we can come back in 6 months and see where our revenues are and see what we have. From what I understand, it's a lot of homeowners that use that more so than farmers, because half the farmers, I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm fine with temporarily suspending it.
She said she pushed it out, but she didn't give me a date.
Okay.
She just eliminated raises, which would not be funded by the state anyway, and pushed out the hiring for the full-time extension based on not knowing when it would be. It wouldn't be at the beginning of the year. She did that.
Right, so we've got, I know that I would like to look at them closer, but, I think we can go through these without stopping and looking at every single little thing, but just enough to get everybody comfortable.
Just look at the board, just so they know what money I took from it.
There you go.
So, you normally, in a normal year, we give you you have $35,000 that we use for the most part for Davenport and Hurton Profit. So when you want to look at a new convenience center location, and we ask them to cost it out. So they've got to do a preliminary design, and then they've got to calculate the cost. We have to pay for that service. So for you all to get the answer to a question, we will send it to the professionals to have them get us a real answer. So I've reduced your budget by $10,000 to $25,000. And your travel and training, we're going to give you $3,000 for that. Took it all away because you just don't tend to use it. And so the other item is the employee recognition fund, $7,500. We use that to cater the Christmas party, the meal, and we use that for, in the past, the spring picnic. Last year, we all went to a ball game together and provided food for that. And I think the committee was looking at doing that again this year. And that is another easy place to make a cut from. In terms of having no effect on operations. No immediate effect. With the understanding, with the employees, they understand it's a 1-year cut, and we'll all be back next year. But that's what we took from your budget. Were there others that you in particular wanted to look at, other departments? Mr. Martin?
Library.
So I don't know why he did those.
It came from Steve Preston.
Yeah, so he didn't really give me any explanations for each one. My guess is he can't do special programming if he's not open.
It's still $87,000 in there.
No, I'm talking about his special program, which was
I'm talking about
$2,500. Books and subscriptions, I think he just tries to make sure he does what he needs to do. I don't know that it's, I would really have to ask him about that.
So he spent 114 in fiscal year 19.
Yes, and he probably is not gonna spend his budget, my guess is, for 2020, but he may be changing things because of the way the library's having to do things.
They've been closed, haven't they? They haven't
Yeah,
been
so he's
operating.
probably, my guess, not buying true books, but probably more subscriptions for people to access.
Okay, but this is starting July 1.
Right.
We hope the library is going to be open July 1, right?
I can't answer that question for you. I wish I could. I don't know how it works. I know he cut his computer supplies and software, and I know he had intended on doing some pretty substantial upgrades this year. I believe he's putting those off a year. I expect they'll be back in next year. In both line items, the computer supplies and the equipment line.
We asked all the departments to make a 4% cut. Some were not able to, and some were able to do a little bit more. That was their goal.
Mr. Martin, do you have your question answered about the library? I didn't.
So my guess is that this is like Mr. Ayers said, that a lot of us looked at stuff that we felt like we could do without for 1 year. I expect that Mr. Preston will kick it back in gear the following year.
Yes, I'm not willing to accept it yet, but okay. Answer your question.
And once again, there's revenues to be had. When we come back at the upcoming meeting and project an increase of fees, you can, as that money comes in, you can dedicate that to wherever it is that you want it to go. I expect any department that is, all the department heads have the authority to move money within their account lines. Okay, so they can move it around where they're short, or where they're long. And if they get to the point where they have no money left and they really need more money, they will come back. They will come back and ask for it. And we'll be able to look at that. And I have the authority to move money between departments up to $25,000. So I can keep money moving to the right place during the year too.
All right, Madam Chair, just humor me and follow me for a minute. So, on the first page, on the 2-cent tax increase and 3%, right? Using all of the proposed tax cuts, you're left with $336,557, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, if you take the $742,127, right? And you subtract the $277,000 from the landfill, right? Not the landfill, yeah, the landfill.
Yeah.
Well,
Then you're only getting $465,000.
well, let's back up. All of the cuts here are new cuts, okay? Things that we're placing before you to show you we propose to cut here. The landfill, however, you've already approved those cuts with a change in its operation.
But they're in your $700,000.
We're using that because you just approved that at the prior meeting. We're able to use that to reduce the budget. Okay, until you approved that, we couldn't do that, but you did. So now we're taking credit for something you've already done.
Right.
So to not leave that in there is to disapprove the changes you've already approved.
We're going, all right, but if we leave that in there and take everything else out, then you only have $465,127 in cuts.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
All right. And if under the 2-cent tax and 3%, you had a remaining balance of $336,557, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if you subtract that from the 465, that leaves you $128,570, right?
If you want to add all the cuts back in. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay,
Everything
I understand what you're saying. Yes, sir, that's correct.
Then, if you accept the increased fees, let's say $75,000, you're at $53,570 in cuts that you need to balance the budget,
Yes, sir.
right? So, to me, we could do everything with the 2-cent tax increase if we can find $53,000 in cuts.
That's the way I see it.
So take what we've already done and figure out which ones of those.
If we say, yep, we gotta do a 2-cent tax increase and put everything back except $53,000.
Well-
So then what, you pick departments that would
I can tell you
would
that
have their cuts?
I have 25 of that pot that we set aside is in there.
The personnel contingency fund.
We cut the personnel contingency fund by 25,000. That's 25 of it right there. If you're doing everything that you're doing, maybe you wouldn't need 50.
True. But
Yeah.
you already covered it.
Right, but if you start, so we need to find 50, how much did you say? I just didn't do the math, 50 something.
53,570.
Okay, so if you need to find 53,570 of all these cuts that we currently have, 25 of it is that. So we only have to find
Another 25.
28,
Pull another 28 off of this list.
yes.
Which to me, that should be a lot easier.
You can just give it all back to the library and let them reapportion it.
No, he's getting everything back.
So we need to keep
Except
23.
23.
Except 53.
Except 53, I gotta find 53. Out of what's left besides solid waste, we need to find 53.
Okay, and half of that is the contingency.
Well, and 10 could be their professional fees,
Okay, so that's
35, so
35,
we need 18.
18.
So y'all can do that.
We can do that, I'm just trying to show that it won't be hard to find the 53.
Does the board understand that logic? If we agree to raise taxes by 2%, due to fee increases, we would only have to find an additional $53,000 to cut the balance of it. Do y'all follow that?
I am following you, yes. And you
So
would
we wouldn't have to
do,
raise it 4 cents, we wouldn't have to raise it 6 cents. And we have to see where that gets us into.
Get to the year 2025
Right.
and does nothing for
future at this
the
time.
future at this time. When I say future, I mean the future fund, the money that we set aside to keep the CIP full, keep it funded into the future.
And that's always been my concern, but if the will of the board is, if 2 cents is what the board feels like they can stomach right now. All of the work that we have done as far as keeping ahead of our painting, keeping ahead of our roofs, keeping this county looking decent, we're not putting money ahead towards that, and that
Okay.
bothers me.
Okay,
We've
fine.
seen what that looked like before.
Actually,
But,
I
but
can,
no, I'm just saying, but
yeah, but.
maybe if we look at it in a year and things have turned around and you redo it.
Yeah, but I always hear about, past boards with their fiscal conservatism. The fiscal conservatism of past boards has allowed us to have our current spending policies. Actually, they are liberal spending policies because they accumulated $16 million worth of spending and over the last 4 years, our spending has accelerated. So to say that was all bad, I think is not true because it allowed us to buy and purchase a lot of things without going into debt. So that's my opinion on it. But as far as, I'd like to see no tax increase in the 2% COLA. But if that's the best this board can do, then, I will support it. I'd rather not raise taxes,
But I
but
don't think any of us wants to.
Mr. Ayers, what are your thoughts?
I've got reservations about raising taxes with the current situation we're in. We're gonna have to do it again next year. In 12 months. I just think we need to get over this hurdle we're faced with for this 12 months, and then next year people need to understand it's going to happen. And it will probably likely be more than 2 cents. But it's the majority of this board that makes a decision. But finding ourselves in the situation we're in, we can get through this next 12 months without raising taxes, and all the departments helping us get through it. Then next year, hopefully we can reevaluate, and we will have, definitely, no questions asked, we're going to have to do something next year. But if we do this now, we're going to do it again next year.
Stacy, what year does the, cigarette tax and meals tax?
It can be effective July 1 of 2021.
2021?
Yes, we can't do anything in this budget year, but we can look at it for the following. As well as raise meals tax to 6% without a referendum anymore.
And as you recall, we do plan to bring to you this summer changes to e-poll and merchants capital, which we had planned to do anyway, and to take effect in 2021, January 2021. So we can look at those things at the same time too. And of course, there has been talk amongst board members about using that money and dedicating it toward the future, so that the CIP is here and there is money always being set aside for the future. That could be the source of that. We've been delayed a year, but it's still out there. It's still an opportunity for us to take advantage of.
Board members, there's a couple of options in front of us. No tax, 2-cent tax. One of the concerns I would have, and I mean, nobody wants to raise taxes, nobody. Let's just say, let's take the opposite approach. Let's just say that the economy doesn't turn around, that the virus comes back again in the fall. I don't know how we can shut the economy down again, but what if we do? And then we're looking at not being able to raise taxes again. And you don't have anything, you have absolutely no cushion built in.
My feeling, Madam Chair, is if we raise it 2% now, we don't have a change in the economy next year. We're gonna have to do it again, probably twice as much or whatever. I mean, we're hoping and trying to be positive that things will not be, and we will not find ourselves in that situation next year. So, you know, if we do and we don't do anything to our citizens this year as far as an increase, at least we say we did everything within our power last year, even amidst the crisis we were in then, and we didn't raise them on you. So what do we do next year? Well, we did raise them this time, and so we're gonna have to raise them again. I mean, that's an angle you will probably see too. You know, again, it's this board's pleasure as to what we do or what we don't do.
Okay, so the other option, if you look at no tax increase and a 2%, you do all that math we just did, raise fees, you're short $287,270. So you'd have to go back and find $287,000 out of those cuts, which is hard.
I have to look a little harder then.
And it's a lot
I'll have to look a little harder for those.
And to play devil's advocate, I mean, again, nobody wants to raise taxes, and you generally hear from people who are adamant about don't raise my taxes. But then you also hear from these people who say, don't cut my services. You know, whatever you have to do, I want to make sure that this county is prepared for the future. I want my schools looking this way. I want my roads to look this way. I want my recycling done. I want my buildings looking nice. My trails looking good. And those things are important to that group of people. So it's not a linear decision, is what I'm saying.
All right, well, I'll make a motion. I would like to see us go forward with a no tax increase and a 2% volume.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. Is there any discussion? All right, board members, I think they're probably going to need to take a roll call vote. Ms. Moore?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Ms. Tucker? No, nay. Mr. Ayers? Mr. Martin?
We didn't have a chance for any discussion.
We can, yeah, let me discuss.
Yeah, that's what I said, any discussion?
So no tax increase, 2% COLA, that means they have to find $285,000 cuts. Right? 287,000.
No,
No.
under the option, we have $102,000 surplus.
So we could add back 102,000.
Give that. yeah,
Give back.
departments.
That's right, but,
Oh, you're talking about the fee increases too.
yeah, so if you, for all the cuts, if you take away the 277 from the landfill,
Right.
that's 465, 127, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you take out the 102,848 remaining balance, that leaves you with 362, 279. And if you take out 75,000 in increased fees, it leaves you at 287, 279 deficit. So you'd have to find $287,279 to make all that work.
Right, okay, I understand that. I need to add.
Let's see, $5,000.
Board members, just a reminder, if we do this and unforeseen things come forward, we can't say, well, our budget was so tight, we're gonna just dip into the general fund. You gotta stick with this thing, and that's trying to make it a budget so tight, it's almost unlivable.
This works. I'm sorry, Mr. Hunter.
Just need to remember, it needs to be very clear, this is a 12-month budget. We will definitely be faced with increases next year, it's not two ways around. But we're doing, I think this is taking care of our staff across the board, with adjustments, 2%, and again, the department heads have stepped up to help us get where we are to get through this crunch we found ourselves in, but we will definitely be faced with some struggles for next year. And folks need to understand that, but I think we've gone, if this passes, we've gone and done the best we can do to get through this 12 months, faced with what we're faced with.
We're gonna have to raise them.
There's no two ways about it, and beyond 2%.
So, what, I'm gonna decide, but,
Well, I haven't voted yet neither.
No, are you a support, a yes, okay. All right, just so that we can make sure for the record. Mr. Pugh made a motion, Ms. Moore voted yes, Ms. Tucker voted no, Mr. Ayers voted yes, Mr. Martin voted yes, for the record.
And I,
Well, yeah, you made the motion, so yes, Mr. Pugh voted yes for the
I
motion.
don't have to vote for them.
no.
All right, what else do you need from us?
So my plan is to have your book ready by the 19th with the draft all done.
My book, she needs, the budget will present to the public, at the public meeting, that operates from this option.
Do you all want a budget workshop on the 19th?
Board members, what's your pleasure?
Do we need a budget workshop? That'd be my question, or we did just.
Not if you're okay with giving me that direction and I can put it all together for you and give you your copy to review on that day. But I have to go to, I have to send to the newspaper on that Friday.
So this is a 300-page document that you'll get to see all together for the first time on the 19th. So we can make time for you to make changes to it, to ask questions about it in a workshop, or we can just leave it on the agenda for the meeting. We just have a discussion in the meeting. But we're hoping you're going to be good with it. It'll take us up until then to get it finalized.
If you want to meet and discuss it and change anything, we will have to consider pushing out the public hearing again. Because I don't see getting it ready in 3 days.
Well, not if there's minor tweaks. There's just minor tweaks to it. I mean, it's done, it's changed, they're gonna see how it all fits together.
I mean,
I'm just throwing it out there,
But
but
come in here blind and have a budget in front of you and vote on it that night.
No, I'd like to see it.
See it,
Thank
but
Okay.
to be able to come in
what
here
I'm
that
trying to
night and just look over it and think you're gonna ask pertinent questions on it.
Right. Well, we'll get it to you 3 days before the meeting. We'll schedule a budget workshop, and we'll ask that you not change anything in it, if it's at all possible. But that we can minor tweak it before it has to go to the press on Friday.
And this $224,000 that you all gotta find, you're gonna send that to us ahead of time, right? So we know.
Okay, so back up a minute,
The money's
please.
I thought the money's
I'm
already
getting a
been
little
found. It's already been
So
cut.
you want the book ready by Friday, this week?
No, I want it ready by the budget workshop for the 19th.
Okay, because I understood you just said that you want to give it to them 3 days ahead.
Well, we, if we can, we will. We'll give them what we have. They need to see the whole thing on the 19th.
That was my goal, is to give them their copy on the 19th.
Right.
And if there are any issues, we can make the changes before we go to press. I'll try to get it to you as quickly as I can, but I can't,
We're starting from scratch because we were.
I had all the pages made. But I've got to go back and create about 150 easily. I will do my best to get it to you by Friday, but it may be Monday.
And the budget workshop will be Tuesday before the board meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
5 PM workshop, 7 PM meeting.
Tuesday the 19th.
Okay? Anything else?
Anything else we need?
Not unless we just need to push it out. That make you more comfortable.
Well, let's see if we need to.
Okay.
No, ma'am, we're good.
Board members, anything else?
Come on,
The motion to adjourn?
so moved, Madam Chair.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.